Oh, okay. So, it does seem that we're live now, and it does seem that the time is right. 5 p.m. my time. So I really hope you guys are doing good this evening, and I hope that you guys are ready for some legato, because that is the topic of this evening, and I think we're gonna have a lot of fun. But first things first, I'm sure there are some people out there who've never heard the term legato. What is legato? Well, legato simply means a smooth flow of notes. So how do we achieve a smooth flow of notes? Because that sounds pretty damn good. I'd like to achieve that. Well, it's different depending on what instrument you're playing. But on the guitar, we primarily use two techniques called hammer-ons and pull-offs. And with the help of these techniques, we can achieve a smooth flowing sound, which is called legato. Okay, so, how do we get started? So here's the deal. In the description to this video, I've given you a link. That link is important because it contains all the tabs. It contains Guitar Pro tab. It even contains a scale diagram so you can see the framework of what we're going to be working on. But since I've told you this, I'm gonna, without any further ado, dive straight into it so we can get started and play some awesome legato. We're gonna be starting from scratch, but we're also gonna go through some more advanced applications of this super cool technique. And I'm also gonna share some of my mistakes throughout the years, so hopefully you can avoid them. Okay, so if you check out this link, you're gonna find the very first exercise that says Chromatic Starter. And it says Chromatic Starter because that's what it is. It's going to get us started, and it doesn't play a specific scale. Instead, it uses chromatic notes. And there's a very specific reason for that, which we're going to go through. Okay, so I think we're ready to do our first pull-off here. However, we can't just do the pull-off like that, especially not if we're new to this. It's going to be difficult, so we're going to cheat a little bit, and that's perfectly fine. We're actually going to pick the first note to give us a little bit of leverage and give your legato technique a little bit of a push in the beginning. So we're going to position our pinky here on the 15th fret, and we're going to fret that note like that, okay? And you might be asking yourself, hey, wait, pinky, that's tricky, playing with the pinky. Playing with the pinky is difficult, but there's a very good reason to do it from the beginning. Because if we postpone it for later, we find that we just keep postponing it. And eventually, you might end up sounding like Eric Clapton, which I guess is a good thing. But the problem is Eric Clapton doesn't use his little finger, right? And that works for him. But for most people, it's a very useful tool to have. So we're going to be playing with the pinky from the beginning, and I think you're going to thank me later. We'll see. Okay, so we're picking this first note, right? And then we're going to be pulling off. Cool, Manojit, what's up, my man? So we're going to pick, we're going to pull off. Now, the pulling off part, it's super important that you actually do a downward movement. You can think of it like this. We're actually plucking the string with our left hand, and when we pluck a string like this, we pluck it downwards, right? If we just lift it up in the air, we won't get any sound. And it's the same thing when doing a pull-off. We're gonna be plucking downwards like that. Okay, down, that's important. If we just lift the finger up in the air, like that, we won't get any note ringing. Okay, so we pick, we pull off downward, and then we're gonna hammer on back again. Now when hammering on, we're gonna do exactly that. We're gonna hammer on. We're gonna hit the note from above. And you don't have to worry about any downward movements or anything like that. But you should think about where you are hammering on, okay? There are good places to hammer on, and there are bad places. So within the two frets that make up the frame, or the fret wire that make up the frame for the actual fret here, we want to be hammering on as close as possible to the upper fret. And in the beginning, this is going to be a bit of a hit and miss, but I still want you to know about this, because whether it's unconsciously or not, you are going to think about trying to hammer on the right place, and it's going to give you a big advantage because it requires much less force. And we do not want to be applying force or strain or anything like that when we're playing, especially not for legato technique, which requires a very soft touch. So actually, hammering on the right place is a super important part of this whole chain that is a good legato technique. So you can have a good legato technique if you're straining up, and even if you're not, and if you're hitting on the wrong places, you're not going to get any good notes ringing. And then you're going to be tempted to start straining up and using a lot of force. So as I said, this is part of a chain, and all these elements need to work for your legato technique to really take off. Okay, so we have this pick strike. We have a downward motion, that is the pull off, and then we have a hammer on, okay? Pick, pull off, hammer on. So just this is pretty much everything we need to know in a way. We've done our pull-off, we've done our hammer-on. This is not to say, it's supposed to be easy. This is actually pretty tricky stuff, so you're going to have to work on this just to do this little part. But once you're able to do this, you definitely have a good foundation. And the specific exercise which we're working on focuses on teaching you how to do this with all fingers, right? That is why I've chosen a chromatic exercise, because it spans through all fingerings here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth. We're not quite ready to do, right? But that's what you can do with it in the prolongation. Not only is this a good starter, a chromatic starter, but you can also play it in a very musical way once you master it. So this is some pretty good stuff. Not only is it a great starting exercise, but it's also a musical lick. Okay. So obviously, I would want you to sort of pause the video here and spend some time with this. It's a good idea. Or actually, it's crucial, I should say, that you, in the beginning, try to count here like I did. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Because you're going to want to practice this with a metronome as soon as you're somewhat comfortable with that downward movement and with the hammer on and all that. So when you're somewhat comfortable with that, you're going to want to practice this evenly with a metronome or drum machine or something like that. And the reason I'm counting is it helps me sort of fit my playing into the grid of the metronome. So on every one would be like a click, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's a metronome. Here's how it sounds. Beautiful. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Okay. So that's the first exercise. It's designed to get you started, to warm you up. It works with all your fingers. But now I think we're ready for something else. We're ready for a diatonic legato exercise. And that means we're going to fit our legato patterns into a specific scale. That's what diatonic means. And this scale is the key, or the scale of E minor. Right? So this is some cool stuff. You can do a lot of fun stuff with it. But if we check the provided link there in the description, we can see the second exercise, which is called E minor pull-offs. This time around, we're not going to be counting to 4. We can count to 3 instead. And we're only going to be doing pull-offs here, as opposed to the previous exercise where we alternated between pull-offs and hammer-ons, right? But this is a descending pattern, which means we're going down. On the guitar, that would translate as going up, actually. We're going from the thin string to the thick string. But in terms of notes, That means we're going down, right? That's the low note. Okay, so let's get started. 15th fret. Pick the note, pull off, pull off. I've already explained how to do this downward motion, right? So we're gonna repeat this pattern. And we're gonna play it on the B string. And when doing so, we're gonna have to slightly adjust our fingering to remain diatonic, to remain in the scale of E minor. One, two, three. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Cool. So just a quick check here. I hope you guys can see and hear me properly, and please feel free to stop me if at any point you feel that I'm too fast or too slow or anything. You feel that I should have explained something more clear, or if you missed something I said or whatever, just stop me. That's perfectly fine. Okay. So this is our descending E minor legato pattern, and it only uses pull-offs. Pick, pull off, 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 pull off. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And in the prolongation, this can give you some super cool runs, right? You can just use that as a springboard of ideas. That's not what we're going to do now. We're just trying to sort of nail the essence of the technique here. But there's absolutely nothing stopping you from taking this wherever you wanted to, provided you get the foundation right. That's sort of why I'm sort of hammering in the message of working with your pinky, being relaxed, having some precision when doing these hammer-ons, so you're doing them on the right place, and also explaining the actual downward movement there, which is critical when you're doing your pull-offs. And I should note that, you know, I'm exaggerating a bit when I'm doing down like that, but I think you understood that. That's just to get the essence of the movement down. But as soon as you understand that you need to sort of pluck the string downwards, there is absolutely no need to do like a 5 centimeter movement. On the contrary, it's a good thing if you do a small movement. Right? It doesn't have to be big. Okay, so let's move on. Let's now play an ascending pattern, which means we're going from the low notes to the high notes. We're going from the thick strings to the thin string, right? So we're going to start on the 12th fret here, and we're going to hammer on the 13th fret, and we're going to hammer on the 15th fret. So pick, hammer on, hammer on. So again, you'll notice that we now only playing hammer-ons. We're going in the opposite direction. So when we ascend, typically hammer-ons are the techniques to use. Cool, we got a question there from Nakuda. Should I move my fingers in block, so to speak, from string to string? Aha, I see what you mean. So basically, if you should reposition your fingers like that, I would say, basically you need a bit of finger movement, right, to get your legato happening. So typically when we're playing ascending, as is the case in this specific example, there is actually no point in pre-positioning your fingers, because you're going to have to move them up again in order to get some leverage and do these hammer-ons. However, in the opposite direction, when we're going in downwards, we can pre-position our fingers, because we're doing a pull-off which doesn't require the same amount of movement to hammer on that note. So if I understood your question correctly, that's an okay concept for going downwards, but it's not really recommended when going upwards, right? Because if you position your fingers here, then you're going to have to lift them anyway and start doing that. So that would be my answer. Cool question, by the way. Okay, so just to finish off this little example here, we're going to repeat the pattern twice on the B string, and then we move up to the E string. And once again, we're going to slightly adjust our fingering in order to remain diatonic, which means we're going to remain in the key of E minor. Why is that important? Well, if you can remain within a single key, that also means you can play your legato licks over a backing track, which is of the same key. Okay. So we've covered a lot of cool ground already, and we got a cool question already by Nakuda. Thanks for that. We've done our chromatic starter to warm your fingers up. We've explained the different movements and the different concepts you should be aware of when starting with legato. And even if you're not brand new to this technique, I'm sure there are some people who haven't thought about these aspects of like correct finger placement and all that. That is some very useful stuff if you want to get to the next level. So if you're like me, you were probably rushing things in the beginning because you wanted to play those awesome leads. And what I had to do, I had to go back and sort of clean up my technique. And that's a perfect legit thing to do. Actually, it's the best thing to do if you've already learned something, but there are some problems with what you learned. You should go back and fix them, obviously. So hopefully, regardless of which is your user case, you can still benefit from this information. However, it's now time to start looking at a more advanced legato pattern, which uses a combination of hammer-ons and pull-offs, and it's a bit longer as well. And I just have to give you my personal story here. When I first saw this pattern, it was my old teacher when I was young, a guy called Christian Niemann, and he's still around playing these awesome leads, and he was a guitarist for Therion for quite a while. But anyhow, he showed me this specific pattern, and it just blew my mind. I'm sure it was definitely, like bread and butter for him, just and he just did something, I don't know. But I was like, whoa, that's the coolest thing. And that's the pattern I'm going to show you now, though we won't be playing it horizontally. So we're going to be starting once again with a pick strike on the 15th fret. And we're going to stick to this key of E minor. And then we're going to pull off to the 12th fret here. Pull off and then hammer on to the 14th fret. And hammer on again to the 15th fret. So we have pick, pull off, hammer on, and then pull off, and then pull off, right? So pick, pull off, hammer on, hammer on, hammer on. No, pick, pull off, hammer on, pull off, pull off. Okay, so it's a mix, and we get a total of 6 notes, which means we can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Cool. We're going to repeat the same pattern down on the B string, and once again, to remain diatonic, to remain within this key of E minor, we're going to have to slightly adjust our fingering here, so we get this. Pick on the 15th fret, pull off to 12, hammer on, pull off, pull off. Okay, there we go. So slowly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, if you've never played something that contains 6 notes like this, it can be challenging, and just as it can be challenging just with something that contains 3 notes, because it's sort of an uneven repetition. But what you can do, you can try to play it. If it's easier, you can count to 3 instead of 6, right? So you're sort of halving the tempo there. So you could do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You can try if that's easier. Generally, when you play slower in the beginning, it is easier. It's very easy to do, like if your metronome click is beep, beep, beep. So you go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, that kind of thing. We don't want that. We want it to be even. So better do just click, click, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That's just a tip. It's usually easier to break things up into 3 than 6. Cool. Well, I think we were kind of faster than I had anticipated now, and we covered all the examples here. So what I could do, I could show you maybe an example of just playing around with some of these shapes in over a backing track, so we get more like a true real-life application of this. And also, feel free to do what Nakuda did and just ask a question, because a lot of times these sessions get so much better if you can be a bit spontaneous. Maybe you're wondering about something totally different, doesn't even have to relate to legato, or maybe you would like us to dive into something specific. We got a cool question about tapping when I did this session yesterday on Facebook, and that's also a legato technique, for example. So we'll see if I can just grab a backing track here in the meantime. So I'll just share my screen with you. This is hopefully what you've been looking on. These are the tabs I've been speaking about. And again, you can find the link there to them from the description. But I thought I was gonna find some kind of backing track here. Let's see. Rock ballad. Yeah, how about this one? I went for a ballad now simply because it can be a bit easier to demonstrate things on a slow backing track, but also because I always found slow blues or ballads, whatever, to be really beneficial for practicing new stuff for myself whenever I'm doing new stuff, or back in the days when I was working with this kind of thing and it was new to me. So that's might be a cool tip for you to go for ballads if you're new and you're not really comfortable playing stuff up to tempo. And one way is to find them, just go to the rock section and you can go into the subcategory of ballad here, or you can just search for ballad here. You're gonna get lots of results as well. But here's one, and here's a jam track. So let's do that. So here's the backing track I'm playing there. This is going to be in the different key, actually, key of G minor. So if you're comfortable with the, like the pentatonic scale, you can play it on the 3rd fret. I'm still just going to play a little bit of legato here to try to inspire you. See if we can get, That's the exact pattern we've been working on, right? Same there, right? I'm trying to play all these patterns so you can hear them in action. Let's do some wider stretch stuff. So these patterns I showed you, they work really well over wide stretch scales as well. So you can do, that's like a pentatonic. Can go really crazy if you. Or how about the very first one, the one we did in a chromatic fashion? Chromatic is not necessarily always the best choice over a backing track, but you can adjust the fingering a little bit so you... So lots of use cases there. Okay, so just for the fun of it, let's see what Guido does with this backing track. I think he tried to keep the difficulty level down here, so it's more of a melodic thing. Very nice. Very nice solo. So if all this legato goes way above your head, I should probably give you the link to this one. You can check it out as well if you'd like to. There are always free sections here, so you might want to check it out. If not, you can just stream the backing track for free if you want to jam a little bit over it. That's a pretty cool one. So I'm just gonna, why not try to find another one just for a little bit of jamming there. I can try searching for ballad now instead. Let's see what we find. Fusion ballad, maybe not so much. Try this one. I always check for the tonality here. So I think C major, but it seems there's a switch somewhere to C minor as well. So that's cool, that's a bit of a challenge there. Really nice with the change of key like that. When you're aware of it, gets annoying if you don't see it coming. Nice. Okay, so we have to check. It's always fun to compare. So let's see. This is Max who did this one. Let's see. A really cool tone as well. Ooh, super melodic. Nice. You can see how he works with those bends as a part of his phrasing. But also wide vibrato there. Pre-bend, meow. But constantly touching those chord notes. That's why it sounds so good. I love it. It's a bit unpredicted he chose to go upwards there. Oh, nice. Very cool there. You can see how he was constantly targeting the strong notes, and he knew that he had to, bending from the same place, he had to push it a bit harder to nail that last chord note. We can just listen to that section again. Very cool. So I'm inspired to jam now. So let's try it again, the jam track. Gonna go a bit further up the way he did. Whoops. Soon comes that switch to C minor. C minor, back to major. So you're gonna find a lot of times what can really set a solo apart from just your standard rock solo is, when you're more conscious about those modulations. And in this specific case, it's almost impossible not to, because it doesn't stick to one key, right? It changes, it modulates a brief, just for one bar, it goes from the key of C major to the C minor chord, which is not contained within the key of C major. And if you can show or sort of convey in your playing that you're aware of where this happens, not only does it sound amazingly beautiful, but that's also obviously sets you apart from just, the standard rock guy just playing one key over the whole thing. Nothing wrong with that. I love doing that. But you can't go wrong with that kind of thing. You can spot easily when you're following the chords closely. And a lot of people ask me, I don't understand what scales I should play to sound like, jazzy. And the problem usually is that people misunderstand that it's not only that you have to learn new scales, you have to switch fast between scales depending on what the chord is. And that's the challenge. And that's how you get that super special sound. You can't really get that otherwise. And this is a good micro example of that, because it's not nearly as complicated as your traditional, jazz tune, but it still has one modulation that you need to nail. So I'm going to give you the link here in case you guys want to check it out. As always, there's free sections here, so yeah. Cool. We got Priyangani. What's up, my man? Nakuda says parallel. It's not really the parallel minor key, no. The parallel minor key is much easier, right? The parallel minor key to C major is A minor. And when that happens, whenever there's a move from C major to A minor, you don't really have to do anything unless you want to, but you can really keep playing C major because it becomes A minor. That is not the case here when we're going from C major to C minor. We have to do something actively, otherwise it's going to sound really bad. So you have to switch from the C major scale to C minor. So there's a bit of a difference there, but it's a good point. There are also a lot of cool, tracks that make use of that movement from between the parallel major and minor keys. That's also cool sound, but it's not quite as strong sounding as when you actually change and modulate to a different key. Well, this was fun. Maybe we should grab some other lesson here. I don't know. Bending ballad. It's a cool one. So this could be tricky. Lydian rock ballad. I know Guido has some backings that are really challenging in terms of key changes. Yeah, this is one of them. It goes from G sharp minor to F sharp minor to C sharp harmonic minor, D Lydian, E Lydian. I think that's too much for us now. Let's check the space rock ballad. We can take one of my own Lydian backings here. There you have it, Lydian changes. So here's like a 2 years or 3 years younger version of me playing the Lydian scale. Not too bad, young Chris. Keep going. You'll be good someday. Of course, back in the days, I didn't know when to stop. So you'll notice this is 5 minutes long. I just kept playing. Okay, so let's check out the backing track here. Yeah, so we have G Lydian, E flat Lydian to C Lydian. Oh, there we go. Oh, C. Pretty nice backing track there. And you know what? You have the whole jam loop for free there, so you should definitely check this one out. You can jam away if you want to practice some Lydian there. And I would say this is definitely on topic of today's lesson, because the Lydian, legato works so well with, we're so used to hearing great legato technique over Lydian playing. If you just think of, Joe Satriani or Steve Vai, we really come to sort of associate whammy and legato with the Lydian sound. So I definitely think you can have some fun with this one. Let's do some more with it. Soon E flat Lydian. C Lydian. I was slow there. Back to G Lydian. Soon E flat Lydian. You see, I'm using a lot of legato here. Oops. I'm also using a lot of bad notes because I mess up. Pretty cool. So, but if you want to hear me play over this, you're better off just watching the original lesson, I think, because I was a bit warmed up with this. I haven't played over this progression over a few years, and so I forget. But it's still pretty cool. It changes between 3 different Lydian keys. So if you're up for a challenge, you can use your legato lines over this one. Who knows? Cool. Maxime, what's up, my man? Awesome to see you here. So in case we got some new people here, I should probably just wrap things up and explain what we've covered so far. We've gone through the ins and outs of legato, and we've taken it sort of from the beginning just to make sure that anything else that I choose to build upon or other material that I present relating to legato is going to be able to build upon this lesson. So if you've never played legato, I'd say this is a pretty good starting point. You're going to get an introduction to what legato is. It's a smooth flowing sound. We've spoken about how to achieve a smooth flowing sound specifically on the guitar, because it's different depending on what instrument you're playing. But on the guitar, we use hammer-ons and pull-offs, obviously. Hammer-ons and pull-offs are the absolute best way. Or definitely the easiest way to get started with legato. And in order to achieve that, in order to get started with legato, I would advise you to start with the exercises I provided you in the link in the description here, where I've shown you a chromatic starter. So that's an exercise that basically allows you to practice each finger from a legato perspective. And that is why I chose to start with this one. It's kind of like a warm-up, and it forces you to use each finger for legato, so that you don't end up just playing with 3 fingers. You're giving yourself a bad start if you just exclude the pinky for no good reason. Okay, and then we went on to more advanced legato exercise. They're still kind of basic, but at least they are diatonic, which means they're sticking to a specific scale, and in this case, the scale of E minor. Now, what this means is that we're going to have to slightly adapt our fingering to sort of match the scale we're playing in. And I think we could quite clearly show that through, our choice of, the frets, numbers. We played on 15, 14, and 12, right? And then we played on 15, 13, and 12. That's the only difference we saw. So there's a slight difference between each string. But if you put all this together, we've actually covered a lot of ground in this lesson. And I showed you both descending legato patterns, which make use of pull-offs, and I've showed you ascending patterns, which make use of hammer-ons. And then we've put it all together with a more advanced licks that uses a combination of hammer-ons and pull-offs. It uses also 16th note triplets, so you can count to 6. Or if you want to make it easy for yourself, you can count to 3. So that's pretty much in a nutshell what we've been doing here. For me personally, legato has probably been not only one of the techniques that gave me a bit of a confidence boost in the beginning. I don't know how good my legato technique was back in the days, but I perceived it as very good, and that was important. So I felt I know how to do something. Picking and stuff like that came much later, but legato somehow worked out earlier. So who knows, perhaps it's going to be the same for you. Maybe legato, you'll find it easier than picking. In general, I would say legato might be a little bit easier because it doesn't require quite the same amount of syncing between right and left hand. But each technique always has its sort of pitfalls that you should try to avoid. But regardless of which, I think the emphasis we've put on actually relaxing when playing legato, having control of tension and not straining. I think that information, you can apply it to everything on the guitar and it works. And not only does it work, it's one of the most important concepts if you want to be able to, play fast, but also play fast while being in control, and also be able to be somewhat spontaneous in your fast runs. That's something I'm working on a lot, to be able to even improvise at the higher speeds. And trust me, there's no way you can do that if your playing relies on a super tense technique. So I think this is an excellent opportunity to actually practice that hand and finger tension, or rather practice controlling it, and in most cases practice getting rid of it. And I'm saying this because there are only a few instances of legato playing where I would even allow you to use a bit of hand tension. And we actually got that question in the stream on Facebook yesterday. When should you have this kind of posture? Or can you even see what I'm doing here? when should I have my thumb back, further back and stretch my fingers out? And in case you guys are wondering about that as well, I never think it's a good idea to have this this kind of posture. Sometimes it's inevitable when you need to do stretchy stuff, and you've seen me do, that kind of thing. You're gonna have to stretch. But in most cases, you benefit from moving back to a more natural position, right? This is natural. I mean, if you just try holding your hand, try holding it like this. It's not gonna feel too uncomfortable, I assume. This should be okay. Then try doing this, and let me know how it feels after 1 minute. It's not a natural thing, and that's gonna be reflected in your playing as well. Trust me, you're gonna get heaps of problems if you do that all the time. But then of course we have classical guitarists who do it and they get away with it, and so there are no like rules written in stone. But in general, if you can move back to this position and be as relaxed as possible, you're gonna benefit from it for sure. Okay, that's really good. We've covered a lot of cool ground here, and I can also see we've got a lot of new people dropping in. So if you would like me to clarify anything related to this or anything related to anything else, feel free to ask me now, because the session isn't quite over, but I've covered all the prepared material I had for you. And that is because generally I like if the sessions are a bit spontaneous, because I can always sit here and record videos on my own. It's not worth anything. What is worth something is the interaction between you guys. So definitely feel free to shoot if you have any thoughts or questions about legato technique. Okay, so while you think about that, I'm just gonna give this one another go. I liked it a lot. So here's start with G Lydian. So in case you guys missed it, for some reason we landed on a lesson where younger Chris is jamming for 5 minutes over the Lydian scale. Actually 3 different Lydian scales. And young Chris really likes to play for a long time. So young Chris chooses to jam for 5 minutes. I think there's even worse here. Let me find this one. That's me shredding for 10 minutes. Because that's what everybody wants to hear, trust me. Well, not too bad, but... Okay, so as I was saying, young Chris likes to play for a long time, which is fine. This lesson is actually about jamming, and so it's a bit of a showcase that the stuff I'm trying to teach actually works. But it's always funny to see myself jam for 10 minutes, I think. So are we gonna try this one out? This is a pretty cool track, actually. Oh, you couldn't even see me play there, damn it. So it's me messing up. So this is what you should have seen. Sorry, I didn't turn on the camera. Here's young me jamming for 5 minutes, or 11 minutes. Okay, that's enough, young Chris. Let's see. Are we gonna try this backing track? Maybe we should. We can. I can try to demonstrate some more legato. It's a super cool backing track. It's kind of easy. It sticks to one key, but it's really groovy. It's by my co-instructor Guido Bungenstock. Let's hit it. It's in the key of B minor. So you can play your pentatonic scale here on the 7th. We can definitely fit our legato patterns in here. Let's just fix the levels a little bit. Okay, a lot of picking in there, but even this is a variation of the Chromatic Starter. You can do that with tapping as well. And the last pattern always works nicely, I think. I need to practice more though. Ah! So maybe you guys want to see my right hand a little bit there. I'm doing quite a bit of hybrid picking work here, so you can see I'm doing. And a lot of times I'm using hybrid picking with legato, so. You know, whenever I'm not doing the, which is more, you know, pick based. Cool. So there you have it. Oopsie. You're gonna find, I'm pretty sure this one should have the whole jam track for free there. So if you wanna jam away, and I think I made like the 5 first part free, and this is actually a super good tutorial for working on your, you know, shreddy improvisation shop. So whenever you wanna both be jamming and shredding. Maybe close this one there. Okay, Ryan, what's up, my man? Awesome to see you here. Thanks for commenting. Hope you're doing good. How are you guys doing? I mean, these are some crazy times. I hope you guys, you know, literally have survived the virus. We had it just like a week ago here, and we've been fortunate not to catch any of the earlier versions. So we've been, you know, had the time to get vaccinated, and now we got the Omicron version, I assume. But it wasn't fun in any way, shape or form. I was really bad for like 24 hours. I had a fever, but then it passed on to be more like a pretty severe cold, and now it's just occasionally I cough, but it still feels okay. Cool, can't download the Guitar Profile attachment. Try right-clicking on it and choose Save As. That should do it. Try it. Unicorn, keep on. What's up, my man? Awesome to see you guys here. So do let me know what you guys are working on now. Is this somewhat in line with what you want to achieve? Are you working on like your solo shops and trying to get a smoother sound? I mean, as I've said, I can't imagine any better technique than legato for working on your smoothness. I mean, it sort of has it built into it. Not only does legato mean like smooth flowing lines, but it's, you know, you can definitely work on getting smooth picking and stuff like that. But because you don't involve any picking, you're not gonna get these kind of peaks. So attack peaks basically, which is cool whenever you're doing it. But it doesn't allow for like a smooth sound right when you're soloing. So that's why you can safely say that legato has smoothness built into it, because you're producing a majority of the sound from the left hand, right? And the left hand doesn't have a pick that it can jam onto the strings. It just has its fingertips. And on top of that, you don't get the same pick effect, obviously, if you're doing a small movement here as opposed to aggressive movement here. So all these different techniques, they create different timbres that you can make use of depending on what you're going for. And whenever you're going for a smooth flowing sound, legato is the way to go. Hammer-ons and pull-offs is the way to go. But you could always combine stuff, of course. You could do... That's actually my preferred way of using any technique is by working with this kind of dynamic contrast. So basically, you start off with some aggressive picking and rhythm work. Oh. Let's do that, and I'm gonna throw on some of the patterns we worked on in this session. Let's do the descending one. Sorry, that's a brain fart right there. Let's try it again. Wow, again, brain fart. You know, it's all good stuff. Of course, whenever you're repeating a single pattern for a very long time, it starts sounding like an exercise, right? But I wanted to do it now so that you guys could really hear, or hopefully you can hear once you've practiced, you know, the exercise I've given you, that was actually one of them. But typically when I jam and when I play, I consciously think about avoiding repeating a pattern a million times. Unless it's a very special situation, like you're building up, let's say you have this long kind of bridge thing, and you're really going for some kind of dynamic or some repetition with an increase in dynamics, then I guess you could do, you know, like... You know, something like that maybe. But in most cases, when you repeat a whole bunch of times, it sounds like an exercise. But I'm still gonna do it a bit more so that you guys can hear how we can make use of these specific legato patterns that I've given you today. So let's just do a little bit more riffing and I'll throw those on. That was the ascending version. Let's do it again. So this was the pattern which I chose to call, where are you? Oh, I displaced the topic. Bad Chris, bad Chris. There we go. So this is the one I called E minor hammer-ons. That's the ascending version. So that's what I did here. Of course, I'm doing it much longer, much faster and all of that, but it's the exact same idea. So if you work on that, then you know what you have ahead of you once you get more advanced. So do we have one more? Should we try, let's try the Chromatic Starter. That one is interesting because in the shape I've given it to you, it's more of an exercise. It's more of a warm-up exercise, hence the name Chromatic Starter. However, we can apply the exact same idea with the exact same timing, and instead of doing it chromatic, we can apply it to an actual scale, and which makes it a whole other beast. We can turn it into a musical lick instead of that exercise which we started out with. Okay, so Let's see how we will go about doing that. I'm gonna jam a little bit and see if I can find a natural way into it, and then I'm gonna break it down a little bit and show you how it's actually the same pattern which we've already studied. Pretty cool. If only I could play it one more time. So this is a prime example of how we can use legato as a complement to our riffing. So basically turning it into a whole different beast than our little chromatic starter. So why on earth do I say that this is the same thing as this? Well, because it is, right? I did. It's the same basic building block. The difference is I'm moving it up and down between different strings, and I'm playing it diatonically in the key of E minor now, because that's what I'm riffing in. So I was doing... So the last thing was obviously not part of what we've done so far, but this whole thing... So guys and girls, you really want to practice these legato exercises. They're so cool, and once you nail them, you can do whatever you want with them. And to be honest with you, the chromatic thing is something I did when starting out, and I think for every year after I learned it, I realized how cool it was, more and more. I didn't really understand that it's so much more than an exercise. And nowadays, some of the more intense solo stuff I've done relies on that exact pattern. Whenever I'm doing some kind of like a... it sounds better over a backing track, but if you can imagine something super intense like a build-up, I tend to go towards that kind of thing, and with arpeggios and stuff like that. And it's all a variation of that one chromatic starter. So I think it could be extremely beneficial for you to include that in your practice routine, even if you're new to legato, and you know that a lot of cool stuff is going to come further down the line from that specific exercise. Cool. So this is really good. Comdesk, isn't legato kind of cheating? I never learned it, actually. That's a cool question. So is it cheating? And what is cheating? I guess you could say it's cheating just as much as using a hammer is cheating, as opposed to just hitting the nail directly, right? That's harder, that's tougher. If you can get the nail in the wood just by hitting it, then yeah, you're a man. But for most people, it's not handy, right? Now, legato is just like a hammer. It's a tool, and it's a super useful tool which you don't want to live without. I mean, sure, if you don't have the tool and you don't see yourself ever being able to get the tool, then it might be easy to dismiss it as some kind of cheating tool. But whenever you have it, it's gonna make your musical life so much richer, especially if you like playing leads and solos and stuff like that. So no, I wouldn't say it's a tool, a cheating way of doing it. Rather, I would say it's a tool, but it's a cool question. I couldn't tell you what cheating is. There's a lot of debate about speeding up stuff in the studio, but that's been done for ages. I guess the limit goes somewhere if you're, trying to sell people that you're the best guitarist in the world and you've in fact edited your playing. That's cheating. But if you're just for the sake of a cool recording, speeding things up and not claiming to be able to play it, then even that I would say is fine. But I could never sort of qualify legato as cheating. No, I would say on the contrary, you're a little extra cool if you can play legato. Yes, it's cheating. Never do it. Okay. I will learn it and also subscribe to your channel. Awesome, Comdesk. What an honor. Means the world. Thanks, man. So is there cheating? Exactly. That's a cool question there. So as I was saying, I think it's a hard line to draw. But if you're just looking for like a quick technique that works fast, then a lot of people, I guess, will refer you to like tapping or sweeping or something like that. So if you'd like to play fast, but you don't have the chops for it, then maybe one of the faster ways to get there is to play this kind of tapping thing. You know, that kind of thing, Van Halen, Kirk Hammett. And I can show you that right now, if you haven't seen it before. So we're gonna be tapping, which is pretty much the same technique as the hammer-on technique we've been speaking about, except tapping is done with the right hand, okay? So you could say we're gonna hammer on using our middle finger here on the right hand. So here's the tap, bow, 12th fret, this is a 12th fret. And then we're gonna pull off, right? This is a pull off using our tapping finger. But because of the way the fingers are angled on the right hand, our pull off is gonna be upwards now instead of downwards, right? So we're gonna, like that. Hammer on, pull off on the 12th fret. And then we've already pre-positioned our little finger here on the 8th fret, okay? So we hammer on, we pull off, and then we have our little finger here on the 8th fret, and we pull that one off. So we get 1, 2, 3. Now this is surprisingly easy to build speed with compared to many other things. I'm sure if you didn't see me play this, if you couldn't watch me play this and just heard it, it might sound a lot harder than it actually is. But I'm crap at it. I never do it. But trust me, it's one of those things that typically beginners find much easier than doing that kind of thing. Is usually harder. Okay, the Funk Bomb Bro, you can tap but not sweep. Okay, yeah, I see what you mean. Sweeping is probably harder than the basic form of tapping. Actually, I would say sweeping is a lot harder. There is this misconception, I would say, that sweeping is a little bit easy, but you know, to do it well so that it actually sounds good, to me is very difficult. The way I practice sweep picking is to work with my left hand only, right? So I actually practice those arpeggio sweep picking shapes, which you can find all over the internet if you just search for like C major arpeggio. I actually practice it with the left hand first, and that's how I get, or how I try to get better tone. It's, if you can produce sound with just the left hand, it's gonna sound awesome once you add the right hand as well. It's a bit out of the scope from this lesson, but I would say sweeping is hard, but once you know it, it can be worth it because it's a kind of aggressive sounding technique. Can I do modern legato like Tom Quayle, Rick Graham? I don't know if you would call it modern legato, especially not, I'm not in the best of shape right now, but we can try a little bit of that legato. Or at least not the Tom Quayle version. I wouldn't say that I'm that close to doing that. But let's try a backing track here. So just basically having a more phrasing approach with your legato as opposed to shredding approach. That's what it is. I guess this kind of stuff would be a bit Tom Quayle-ish, like where you really go do these hammer-ons from nowhere. So I think a part of the challenge when doing the Tom Quayle stuff is that he is totally independent of, you know, relying on picking in certain places. And in the beginning, that's hard to do. And that's why I've even instructed you in this stream, if you're new to legato, it's okay to give the string a little push with a pick first, just to get you started. However, you could say that Tom Quayle is on the other side of that spectrum. When you don't have to rely on picking at all, then you can start your legato lines not in the typical way where we do like that, but you could do like start them something like that, right? Where you do it. I'd have to work on that, but right? So I'm starting with a hammer-on from nowhere, right? I'm not picking, I'm starting with the index finger and producing a hammer-on. That's quite a few levels above like the basic exercises I've showed you in this session. It's definitely doable, but it's not the kind of material you would typically hand out to someone who's just starting with legato. But if you're interested in this, then definitely work on your hammer-ons from nowhere. Work on producing sound with the left hand only, regardless of what the string and the direction you're going in is, right? So even if you're down here on the lowest strings and you're playing in like an arpeggio, don't pick, just do. So that'll give you a good starting point for more advanced legato. Cool, Da Funk Bomb Bro, you like it. That makes me really happy. And by the way, awesome to see we got all these questions and comments coming in. I think that makes these sessions so much more interesting. You know, that's what makes the live functionality so cool. We didn't have that 10 years ago. Or actually, we did at GMC. We tried, but the solutions were not very good. We had like a solution called 123 Flash Chat. It was kind of horrible, but it worked somewhat. Crobelos, you're super good, sir. Crobelos, you're too kind, man. Who's paying you to say this? Yeah, they use a little Dorian, Mixolydian, and diminished. Yeah, exactly. And, I'm obviously playing over standard rock track, and I'm just doing like a, D major / B minor thing. But if you want to get a more fusion-esque kind of sound, you typically go outside of that. That's going to sound like crap over this backing track, but let's try it. We're just for the hell of it. So where are we? So let's do Dorian at least, see if that works. So why not? Mixolydian, no, it's gonna sound horrible. Ow. Let's do D Mixolydian instead. That's okay. Let's do, what's the other one you said? Diminished. Ooh, that's hard to fit here. No, I don't think. Maybe. No, we have to go into Fusion land. We can find, we got one of our Fusion instructor here. Let's do Dalton. He had a cool one. Static rock solo. So this kind of backing track lends it better for trying some new tonalities. I mean, it's in B minor, but I just use it it's just the root and the seventh, right? So you can do whatever you want within the context of that. Mixolydian works great. Yeah. Diminished, I wonder. Oh, that's nice. Is that the yellow book? The For Dummies? No, it's not that. It's interesting they have the For Dummies for guitar. I think I had that for like some Dreamweaver or something like that. When I started doing websites ages ago, I had one of those yellow For Dummies books. And it was for that specific software, which now is outdated and no one uses it. But Dreamweaver, that's a way to do websites without understanding or knowing the code. And it gives you some really messy results, but yeah, it's, I guess better than nothing. But did it work? Did you learn any guitar from that For Idiots book? Did it have like a CD in it or something so you could listen as well? Because that's always one of the I find with like a big problem with the pre-internet instructional material. If they're only like text-based, that can work for some theory stuff, but I think for a majority of students it's not going to be very intriguing to just read about how to do it. You have to sort of watch and hear and listen. After all these years, I'm starting to understand. I was like ancient Chinese back then. Yeah, that's what I can imagine. It feels like Chinese, right? Just reading about something abstract that you have no experience of. And that's the whole point of it, is that you hear it. So that I can imagine why that would be difficult, just going through like a text-based book and try to play guitar from that. In my opinion, sir, I think you should upload or post more pop prog or R&B type fusion. Kind of new meta in 2022 for me. Cool, so you want me to post more content. That's awesome, man. So I can, just a little bit of background here if you wonder who the hell I am. I started the GMC website like 15 years ago, and I started this YouTube channel, and many of the big videos you see on this channel, like the 40 techniques videos with 8 million views, they're all my ideas, and I've asked the instructors that I was like, oh, it would be so cool to have like a video with all these techniques. Do you think you could do that? And that's how this channel came about. Of course, we haven't been as frequent recently in terms of updating it, but I hope that's going to change, and we very much appreciate your feedback so we kind of know what you would like to see, and especially if there is some type of content on this channel that you think, hey, we need more of that, then that's obviously easier for us to produce since we've already produced that specific piece of content for this channel. And the reason I'm sitting here speaking to you is because I'm starting to do much more of these workshop live streams. And typically we have a bigger following on Facebook, so I do them more often there. But I also like the idea of doing it on YouTube. It just gives me two different audiences, and you always get different feedback depending on where you are. So you're going to be hopefully seeing more of these here as well. I'm a big fan of these live opportunities because, especially in the pandemic, when you're just sitting on your own playing, you really need to get some interaction going. Whether you're an instructor or a student, it just makes things so much more enjoyable when you get some direct feedback and response on what you're doing. And a lot of the stuff I do in my playing actually come from people telling me, yeah, try this, try that. I'm like, no, I can't do that. Well, okay, let's try it. Oh, I could do that, And it's the same way it works, when you're playing with a band or band mates tell you, try that. And, there's just some magic involved when you're doing like the live chemistry and interaction thing. Yeah, that's the spirit. But love music and always guitar, and wanted to spend my life learning. Exactly. And I think we're two there. There's something deep in my love for the instrument. And it's weird, sometimes, like everybody, I'm not inspired to play. I put it down for a while, and then I start feeling really bad, It's like the weeks pass and I feel worse and worse, and I'm like, what the hell is this? And then it's like, okay. I pick up the guitar. I needed to play. So I'm sure some of you can identify with that. Exactly. You're the first teacher I subscribe to on YouTube. I hope your channel will grow more and more. Thank you, Crobellos. Thank you, thank you. Cool. We have my friend Kyle here. Some of us are both on YouTube and FB, of course. But it's weird how the notification system works. You can never predict where you're gonna get notified about what stuff. So that's also a reason, I guess, to be everywhere, as many places as you can. So if you guys don't know Benjamin, or I think his username here is Storm Linneberg Cloudburst, I think that's his band. He's one of the old-timers on the GMC forum, and right now we're doing something super cool. Basically, Benjamin came to us like a month ago, I think, or more, and it's like, I have this track, you know, should we do something with it? And we come up with the idea to do 2 parallel collaborations that would use the same track and sort of see where they ended up. And we're almost at the point where we're finished with both of these collabs now, and it's very interesting to check the results. A little hint there, I think both are freaking awesome, but they are very different. So yeah, that's probably one of the cooler collabs we've ever done, I think. It's really like a social and music experiment all at once. Pretty cool. You can, you know, head over to the forum if you want to check that out. Or I can just not be fucking lazy, sorry for the language, and find it for you guys. So let's see where we have it. So for example here. So here you can see, and that this one even contains, you know, the very first version, right? Where you sang just a draft version. Here, so you can see that in the thread. Oh, cool! So Benjamin is working at the video in this very moment. That's pretty cool. Cool. There we have a question about hybrid legato. Well, that's definitely somewhat related to what we're doing now. To me, hybrid legato it's a bit like. It might sound fancier than it is because it just involves using hybrid picking instead of the pick. Now, of course, if you've never done hybrid picking, then hybrid legato is going to feel like a major challenge. But if you isolate things and, you know, study hybrid picking independently, and you study legato, and then you combine them, then it's not like rocket science. But nevertheless, I can give you a little breakdown of it here. We can use like this is the same kind of pattern I've shown you already today. So I could just use the pick, right? If you look here, whoops, here, look at the pick, there's the pick. I could do that, right? Or I could do, I'm being a bit exaggerated here in terms of showing things, but that's hybrid legato. Now, when you apply it to like a pattern that uses 6 notes like this, doesn't feel that relevant. But when you're doing the Tom Quayle kind of thing, where you do maybe only 1 note per string, then all of a sudden, using your hybrid fingers there becomes very handy. The only other version I could think of that would be kind of handy would be to sweep. But I prefer the hybrid version there. But if you think of it, it's kind of logic. If you're going to be playing on the low E, the A, and the D string, you could either sweep, right? Or you could pick the first one and then use your finger here, which is actually at a better position to play that string, right? Because with a pick, you would have to move onwards, and the risk of you actually missing and hitting the wrong string is all of a sudden kind of big, right? Whereas if you do it this way, then your fingers are super helpful in finding the right string to pluck. So it makes a lot of sense when you break it down, but still requires you to have a bit of control over your, hybrid technique, which isn't easy in any way, shape or form. So Crobelos, let me know if it makes sense. That's sort of the essence of it. That's why you would want to do it, and the reason it feels hard, I'm guessing, might be that you're not used to the hybrid picking technique. And if you've never done it, it takes some time. But once you've actually learned it, it's, in a way, it feels more natural than picking, because you're closer to the actual strings, right? You don't have this piece of plastic in between. And also, you just have one pick, but you have a whole bunch of fingers there, and they can sort of help each other. So it makes a lot of sense when you're used to the technique. That's just me drinking from my IKEA glass. I have to squeeze in some Sweden marketing here. Nice. Okay, Krobelus. That's actually one of the... So Krobelus is saying that I learned the Eric Johnson Cliffs of Dover intro in 10 minutes. I didn't learn it in 10 minutes. I worked quite a bit on it when I was starting out. And that's one of the things I think was helpful for me starting to use hybrid picking. But I wonder again if the issue is actually with the hybrid part. Because to me, the major challenge in Tom Quayle's playing does not really lie in the hybrid picking. For one, the hybrid picking part is not really fast. In the Cliffs of Dover intro, it's super fast. But, you know, with this kind of thing, it might seem like the hybrid picking is doing some crazy stuff, but it's not. It's just playing one of every 12 notes, right? No, 6 notes. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So it's only doing once in a while, right? The tricky part is the left hand, and that's where Tom Quayle has such a cool control, right? He's super relaxed and super in control. And then, you know, the hybrid picking is there to do some, but the major challenge lies in his legato. And I think he's released quite a bit of cool videos free videos on YouTube where he explains sort of the essence of how to go about, you know, what he thinks of. And it's a lot about being conscious, about being relaxed, which is super good stuff. You have to constantly think about being relaxed. And this is something he emphasizes a lot. So I would say probably the biggest challenge lies in breaking down the legato part. And, you know, adding a hybrid picking, whether you want to play hybrid picking or do some sweeping or picking there, I'd say that's less of an issue. The big challenge is really the left hand. Cool, guys. So if you have any final questions, feel free to shoot. I'm here for a little while longer, and I've definitely covered all the the things I had prepared for this session. So we can still be spontaneous and do more stuff. Just let me know. Oh, I almost forgot. Today I learned, or should I steal one of your video prog shred licks? You should definitely steal from our videos. That's what they're for. So borrow as much inspiration as you can from them. Which one is that? Can you give me the link? The prog shred licks. Is that one of Diego's lessons, perhaps? Cool, Red Beach. You know, I never listened to Winger, it just wasn't my style, but the few times I heard his playing, man, it blew me away. So he's really, really smooth work with tapping and legato and whatnot. So to me, he's a bit in at least in the same era as Vito Bratta from White Lion, who's another one, kind of slightly underrated but incredible guitarist. Also super smooth legato and tapping and whammy work and all that. So yeah, big fan, though can't play anything of it. Cool question there by Kyle or Storm Linneberg. So what inspired me to pick up the guitar? Well, I mean, I wanted to play some kind of instrument. I guess my parents asked me when I was young. So I took those like standard classical lessons, but I wasn't really inspired doing that. You know, that kind of thing. So it really wasn't until I understood that, you know, what I was doing on my nylon string, that was actually pretty much the same instrument as, you know, Slash or Kirk Hammett or Yngwie Malmsteen used. When I sort of connected the dots, then I was like, oh man, maybe I should really try to learn this thing. So I think, you know, that's the story of many, many guitarists out there, but that's definitely how it started. So I had some kind of desire to shred, but when a bit later on, I really decided to dive into it and really spend those 8 hours per day. Maybe you can't paste the link, Crobelus, but just paste the title of it and we'll understand. What do you think about the new RHCP song? I haven't heard it. I'd love to hear it. I love the band. It's such a cool band, but I haven't heard it. Sorry. Legato. Legato. That's a good one. I like it. Could be like the title of our next collab. Legato Licks. Legato collab. Russell Kimball, man, I think I remember your name. I'm interested in improving your speed. Cool. So a lot of the concepts we've spoken about in this session are definitely related to improving speed. You know, how you think about consciously about being relaxed, how you think about minimizing your movements. It's not really something we've touched a lot upon, but that's definitely one of the pillars of playing fast. And also I would say, a tip that's very underrated is the location of your hammer-ons, right? And we spoke about that in this session. Where you choose to hammer on, in other words, as close as possible to the upper fret, is gonna determine how successful you are. What happens is that if you hammer, especially down here, if you hammer on far away from the fret wire, and not very close to the fret wire up here, then you're going to struggle to get the same amount of tone, and you're going to, you know, try to play harder, and you're going to strain up, and it's going to mess up your entire legato technique. So that's an important one. But if I were to grade these different tips, I would say being relaxed is number one. Then minimizing your movements. I'm not going to show you that finger, but I was about to show you that finger. So you have those two. They're important. And then we get down to the details of it. Or or it's actually not a detail, but you know, further down where you hammer on. And also think about the sync between the hands, right? That's super critical. You can do everything right with the left hand, but if you're trying to play speed picking and your right hand isn't syncing up, then it's going to destroy all the good work you've done with your left hand, right? So it's all these components put together, and you can start working towards speed. Another thing to consider is the concept of perceived speed, right? What is fast is not necessarily the fastest guitarist, it's the one we perceive as the fastest. And baked into that perception is how clear the notes are, right? That is why sometimes you can get the impression that, you know, guys like Eric Johnson, and you listen to the clips of Dover work, there's like, this must be some of the fastest playing on earth, right? Though I'm sure it's only a fraction of, you know, other stuff that's out there in terms of speed, but it's so insanely well articulated, we perceive it as super fast. And to me, though this might, I don't know, seem like some mojo or something wizardry, unimportant, to me it's super important, because what I gain from that knowledge or insight is that, okay, so I can make it sound faster if I play cleaner, which means I have to spend less time thinking about playing fast, and I get more brain power to think about what to actually play, because I'm not quite playing as fast, although it might sound as fast. So there are many benefits to understanding this, that the perception of speed is actually what matters. And when you start working on the perception of speed, you get a whole bunch of stuff that goes to your advantage. Like I said, you focus more on being in control, being in sync, playing cleanly, and you actually get a bit more time to think about playing good stuff as opposed to just playing fast, right? If you get all those details down. So I don't know if this makes sense, Russell, but I want to share it with you, because these are insights that have taken me like 20 years to come to, and now they're super important for me. So if I can help you spend less time, you know, getting those insights by yourself, I think it can be good. Okay, so let's see here. Neth, what's up, my man? Yes, this video will be on replay for sure, and actually there's a link in the description which goes to the GMC topic, and that's where I'm going to embed the video. So you're going to find both the Facebook version, which is already there on replay, and this current YouTube version in there. Mohit, what's up, my man? Hi there, I've developed legato skills, but can you explain how to come up with interesting lines like following chord progression? Thanks and love from India. That's a cool question. This is a very broad topic, obviously, but I could at least break it down into two different components. One of them is interesting note choice. This can be easy to tackle in terms of just understanding the theory, right? You break down the chord progression, you look at the chord notes, and then you can study what are some common ways to create tension with those chord notes, and you got your note choice covered in a way. Now, the more complicated version of the answer is to actually start working in terms of phrases and not so much in terms of licks and exercises, right? And generally, the smaller increments you break your playing and practicing into, the more improvisation friendly it is. So to give you an example of the opposite, I gave you a very long legato pattern here. That in itself might not be the most improvisation friendly legato pattern there is, right? Because it's very long, it's a 6-note pattern. Now, granted, I didn't give it to you because I thought you were going to use it to improvise. I gave it to you as an introduction to legato, so, you know, I think it's all fine. But whenever you want to be improvising, coming up with the lines on the fly, you want to break your legato patterns down into very small sections. So here's one that I like a lot. This is actually Greg Howe or Marty Friedman inspired. It has just 3 notes, but even though it's a really short pattern, it still contains an unpredictable and interesting, how should I say, intervals. So if we're in the key of E minor here on the 12th fret, we could do on the 12th fret D string. We pick a note, we hammer on, and then we're going to flatten our finger, And we're gonna play the 14th fret on the G string as well. So we get 12, 14, flattened, and 14, right? So this is an example of a short pattern, and because it is short, it is easier to come up with variations of it, and it's easier to build a longer line upon with it and throw in those small variations. So when you get the accumulative effect of those small changes, the listener will perceive your playing as some long improvised run, whereas in fact you know that you were just repeating a small pattern with small variations. So I'm not sure I can illustrate that now because my brain is starting to slow down. We'll see. I don't know. That was based on... Okay, I hope at least the explanation was okay. The playing was not. I don't know if it makes sense, Mohit. I hope it's somewhat helpful to you. I met Reb Beach in the clinic. He was very good at teaching. He showed me up close his way of tapping. Cool, man. That must have been quite an experience. Now that you say it, I'd like to find some cool YouTube video of him showing that. Would be nice. Michelangelo Bejo. He might be the fastest. Him, then maybe. Who knows? But then after a while, who cares also? Because... it's a bit like that. The other guy, Chris Impellitteri, is another one, you know. But there are a bunch of people who try to be the fastest. But when you get to a certain point, you can no longer even hear the accuracy. It's just like a long fart. And that's when you start to think about the perceived speed instead, you know. So, not to, you know, put Michelangelo Bejo down in any way, but rather, if I have the choice of the precision and sound of Eric Johnson compared to just that long fart, I'd rather go for Eric Johnson. Sorry, it sounds like I hate Michelangelo Bejo. I really don't. Sorry if it comes off that way. I think try adding odd notes and try to feel the modes, but don't learn the modes. Scales, feel it, in my opinion. Yeah, that's a good one as well. Work more on your ear there, and that's a really good one. Cool. You have been working on playing more relaxed, Russell. Awesome. That's great to hear. I really think that's key, and you know, anything you do benefits from being relaxed. Even you know, when you're playing something like Paul Gilbert alternate picking run that uses you know, two-way pick slanting, you have to tense up, but then you immediately have to go back to being relaxed. Or if you use some extreme bending or stretching, all that can require like a short blast of tension, but then you have to practice getting back to it. Always, the normal state should be relaxed. That's super critical, and only apply pressure when you really need it. It's such as the cases I mentioned there. I have learned all the modes and shapes, but still sound like scales. I want to play melodic lines. Exactly. So, I mean, that's a good observation. You know what? Scales are not a good starting point for being creative. On the contrary, they tend to give you very, like, defined limits of what you can and can't do. So if you try the scalar approach, drop it. Just drop it. I think you probably know more theory than enough at this point. Now you need to get creative, right? So what you got to do is stop looking at the theory and start playing actual examples. And here's a shameless plug to GMC. What you could do is just search for whatever styles you like in the GMC search box. And as you will notice, all our lessons are broken down into parts, so that if there's a section you really like, and you can just steal that particular lick. So he's kind of melodic, right? Let's see if it goes shreddy. Okay, so let's say I just want to learn that. I want to steal that section. Then I can try to find it in the parts here, right? And I have the tab below. And there's a big advantage to this, because it allows you whenever inspiration strikes, right? I know that that can be critical. You don't always feel like playing, but when you do feel like playing, you can quickly get into just getting a lick that's interesting to you and make that part of your own style. This is so critical. So that's why I designed the GMC website, so that you would be able to easily steal licks here and there to build your own style. To me, that's such a better approach than just, noodling scales up and down. It doesn't give you the input you need to start producing output. So sorry, that was a bit of a shameless plug, but this is a good way of actually practicing incorporating new ideas into your playing to break away from scalar patterns. Even top guitars play like EVH Beatles that don't know music theory, but they feel and just play it. Exactly, and to add some more details to that answer, these players you mentioned, they've spend an immense time learning what other people before them have done. So they've basically done what I just said about borrowing stuff from everywhere. It's just that now, thanks to the internet, it's more accessible than it ever has been. But the old guys used to do that as well. They learned songs, right? That's how the Beatles got so good at performing. And then later on, they started writing their own songs. So you need a whole bunch of musical input. And scales are not musical input. They're just a theoretical framework. So it's a mistake to think that it's going to give you inspiration. It can give you explanations, but it's not really going to give you inspiration. You need to play musical material to get inspiration. Cool, Moit. You get my point. Awesome. Crobellus is saying, again, in my opinion, I think the best lesson is lesson number 1, practice daily. 2, practice daily. Yeah, that can be good. I mean, it's obvious that, the more you practice, the more you learn. But other factors come into play as well. I don't like playing if I'm not inspired. I tried that a lot. I pushed myself to practicing when I didn't feel like practicing. And not only does that still end up making me not to play for quite a while afterwards, even if I force myself for a few weeks or days, then I end up not wanting to play and I stop playing. And it takes me longer to get back to playing. And also the stuff I actually practice when I'm not inspired is uninspired. Who would have thought, right? So part of the key to be inspired is to, I think, always practice stuff that inspires you. So I wouldn't say you have to push yourself, but rather try to be inspired on a daily basis. If you can be inspired on a daily basis, then good stuff will come. And you will, of course, play and practice every day because you're inspired, right? So that's what it starts with, inspiration. And in some ways, inspiration should be easier now. We got so much content to choose from, although it can be a little bit overwhelming. But I think that's key. Really, try to be inspired on a daily basis. Then you're going to play on a daily basis. BRC reviews. I try to play notes outside of the scale to see what fits, but it's hard not to play the scale. Good point there. Actually, playing outside, sometimes you're made. You might get the impression that playing outside requires you to learn specific outside scales, though that is a way to do it. It is not, the only way to do it. You can't just totally grab random notes. But what you're gonna find out is that it doesn't matter which approach you use, both are kind of tricky to make it sound musical. So you have to do it a little bit to realize that those outside notes, for example, they might sound really bad if you play them on the downbeat. Usually you want them to lead into a strong note. Usually you just want to lightly touch upon those outside notes, while the emphasis is on the inside note, right? So if you just, play your standard strong sounding notes and then try to do, it's gonna sound bad, right? You have to find a natural way to weave it in. Emphasis should still be on the strong notes. You should just use those bad notes to color a little bit. You should color your lines with those. So I think that mindset can help you in not overdoing those outside notes. Cool. Benjamin is saying, I often find that taking a break allows me to come back with fresh ideas and a fresh mind. Yes. And I feel it's easier to come up with new phrases, etc. That's from creative point of view. Exactly. That goes hand in hand with what I said earlier about allowing yourself to take breaks, especially if inspiration has died out. If inspiration is there, go for it, But I think most people get like waves of inspiration, and that's fine. You have to listen to yourself. And if you want to control it again, don't control it by pushing yourself. Control it by finding new ways of getting inspiration. That's, I think, is really key. Find your favorite internet sites or social media, whatever, and find the sources that inspire you the most. That's where you're going to spend your time. Technically, it can be a bit like getting back on the bicycle after a break. You need some time to find your speed again. Yeah, for sure. Both technically and also when you haven't been in the game for a while, you tend to, not feel too good about your ability. So you have to sort of mentally build up as well. I couldn't agree more. Hey bro, YoniTube, send me material. Check the link in the description. That's where you're going to find the tabs to the exercises I've covered in this session. And if you missed the beginning, you can just watch the replay and I'll go through every little bit of information you need to know to get your legato lines flowing. Russell is saying, I've been adding arpeggios to my scales. I've found that chord extensions have given me access to more interesting melodies and licks. Yeah, for sure. Chord extensions can help you both in terms of playing chords, and also it's a way to visualize additional notes you can add to your, lead arpeggios. Definitely, good one. If you play this kind of basic, but pretty common E minor triad arpeggio, starting on the E note there, whatever the fret is, 15th, 17th, 19th fret, I think. That's cool and all that, but it can get a bit colorless if you just do that, right? So I like to add that, add 9 extension, or whatever you want to call it. So, when you've heard like an arpeggio, standard arpeggio played a million times, then when someone adds something like that, it's like, whoa, something happened. So again, it's a good idea to start with the basics, to learn the rules, and then you can start breaking them by adding these suspensions or outside notes or whatever. So that's a really good point there, Russell. Larry is asking, what inspires me? Good question. So, I'm fallen into the pitfall a lot of times where I just get stuck, right? Especially when things tend to get, when I feel I've progressed on something. For example, if I feel that my shredding ability has been boosted, maybe I'll record a few videos and I get cool feedbacks like, oh wow, I can really shred now. And then I'm looking for the same kind of kick again and again, right? However, progress isn't linear. So I had a bump, right? That's why I felt I was better. But then chances are I'm going to remain on the same level for quite a time. So instead of being there and hitting my head against the wall trying to get better, what I tend to do is I shift sideways, I like to describe it as. I just move to something totally different, maybe some bluesy stuff or whatever, and I try to get good at that or better at that, whatever it is. And if I'm lucky, I can get the same kind of kick from that different track, And then a few weeks later, I get back, work more on my shreddy chops, and a lot of times, not only am I able to experience yet a little bump, but also I'm able to borrow or steal something from that other genre I was studying, which might be totally unrelated, and I'll steal stuff or borrow stuff that I had never anticipated I would be able to use. So it can be a matter of a rhythm thing, or maybe something more obvious like blues bending. That's beneficial even if you're shredding, right? Because you always want to end up with the shred. But my point is that I like to move sideways and be proactive and not hit my head against the wall and be uninspired. That happens to me still a lot but with this method, I can have a bit more control over it. So moving sideways, that inspires me. Neth is saying compression is also the key to sound good on legato as well. A bad or an inadequate compression will sound uneven. True. So this is actually one thing I probably should have mentioned this session, but I missed it. I mentioned it in the previous session, so thank you so much for pointing this out, Neth. I would strongly encourage you to practice the legato exercises we covered in this session, both with a distorted sound and with a clean sound. Why? Well, the reason is exactly what Neth is touching upon there. With distortion, aka compression, I mean distortion is just a huge amount of compression and overtones, it is easier to produce sound, right? This is easier. However, it is harder to control noise. So with distortion, it's easier to get noise running. However, with the clean sound, the opposite is true. With the clean sound, it gets harder to actually produce sound. You have to be more in control, but noise is less of an issue. So that is why I recommend you practice both, okay? And if you don't even have an electric guitar, that's fine, but you should still somewhat be aware of these phenomenons, because once you do decide to start playing electric, you're going to have to work a little bit more on your muting technique, right? So, Neth, what I would say is that the type of compression affects how easy it is to perform legato. But compression shouldn't be a necessity for you to play legato, because that means you're relying on something artificial, and as soon as you dial in a different tone with less compression or less distortion, well, guess what? You're not going to be able to use the legato technique you worked so hard for. So you should not only play legato with compression or with distortion, you should also practice it with a clean sound. It's going to make it harder, but it's going to be very, very beneficial for your control and for the quality of your technique in general. Let me know if this makes sense, and thanks so much, Neth, for pointing this out. This should actually have been an important part of what I said in the beginning there. Crobella is saying, I think there's good and bad music. There definitely is, and that's the beauty with music in general. It is so individual, and it becomes identity shaping to define what kind of music you like and what you don't. And I'm all for that, though obviously we have to understand that everyone's tastes are different, and that's a good thing. Otherwise we would just have the same music, and how boring wouldn't that be? Everyone would be into Britney Spears. Oh, I have a clean sound. Well, not that clean, but clean enough. We can do some split coiling. Thank you, Milton, by the way. Stay safe, you too. Exactly, Milton. That's a good point. You can simply just turn down the volume knob and see if you can get any sound from your legato line. Is that even possible? That's very similar to practicing on an acoustic guitar. In fact, I would say it's probably harder than an acoustic guitar because you don't have the sound hole helping you. Though, of course, sometimes acoustic guitars have crazy string heights, and that makes it difficult. Djokovic, is that the tennis player? Or is it the guy without legs? I never know. Probably isn't both of those two. Okay, so who influenced me the most? In clean tone? Oh, well, clean tone, I would say my inspirations are more modern. I would say like Matthias Asato and Ichikamo, I think his name is. The Asian guy doing fantastic stuff. That's, you know, I've always listened to some, you know, clean jazz guys or semi-clean like John Scofield and Pat Metheny. But and also a contemporary guy, Alan Gogol, like an acoustic guitarist. I find his style very inspiring as well. It's just nylon stuff, but just how you can work with playing, trying to play a bass line. And of course, this is kind of John Mayer inspired. I think that's where Matthias Asato got a lot from his percussive stuff from. But I've never really listened a whole bunch to John Mayer. You know, if you're asking about what kind of shreddy guitarist I've been inspired by, the list is long because that was a long time ago. But, you know, I started with, you know, being inspired by Slash, Yngwie, Kirk Hammett, Marty Friedman, Steve Morse, and then Alan Holdsworth, Eric Johnson. There are way too many. Tony McAlpine, Greg Howe, Son Paul Gilbert for his instructional videos. Really of SRV, Blues Saraceno, big one there. And, you know, guys like Dimebag Darrell or James Hetfield, also super inspirational. Kurt Cobain, why not? You know, the list is long. So who is Novak Djokovic? Can you remind me? I think I've heard it before, but I guess I never bothered looking it up. I should care more about my look, probably. Oh, so that is a tennis player, okay. Was that the guy who got stuck in Australia? Is that him? Does he also have a super tasty hat for old men? Sorry, couldn't resist it. Sounds like SRV. Yeah, this is maybe like a... If you want to shred like Michelangelo, learn pentatonic perfectly, and I promise you guys, you can shred all day for real. One of the best tennis players in the history. Cool. So I've never really taken time to break down his style, but I think we have, you know, I'm gonna have to take help from my instructors. I think we have a really cool lesson by Ben. You know, Ben is the one who produced the 30 Shredders video and some others for this channel. But I think, yeah, we even have a MAB made easy here, but let's check out the hard version first. So you can see difficulty level 10 here, so that means it's gonna get shreddy very soon. Okay, let's wait for it. Still not extremely shreddy, but there's still time. This is pretty cool though. Could never do that. Ooh, Steve Vai also, I guess, a bit inspired there. Yeah, and you can see how he nailed that specific picking posture there. Yeah, it's good stuff. He nails that run. Very nice. Yeah, cool. So you can see really how he did a lot of classic things to move around with different, what's it called, like pick slanting stuff. But I don't think I would be able to play that. So if you want to learn this, you should come to this lesson and not ask me. I'm too crappy. There we go. Pretty cool. Let's stick to this instead. You can just dismiss that as being some shreddy stuff. I'm a clean guy, don't do that stuff. I would never want to shred. I just do this. Brazil, what's up, my man? I don't understand what salve is. Is it like a greeting, perhaps? A greeting to Brazil, from Brazil. Hola, ¿cómo está? Yo soy Christopher. Sorry, my Spanish sucks. I should read a book or something. Guys, so I think we're approaching the end of the session, but this was such a cool session. I would never have thought we would get so much cool interaction here. And I mean, all your questions are what really made the stream. It even made me realize that I missed one of the important points I was going to speak about. So thank you again, Neth, for pointing that out. But it's been a really cool session, and I will host another session tomorrow on Facebook the same time, so you might want to check us out there. You can again check the description to this topic, and you're going to find the link to our Facebook page and stuff like that. But yeah, it's been a really cool session. Thank you so much for learning with me. Thank you for inspiring me with all your cool questions. Until next time, practice hard and heavy. Have a good one. Cheers.